Sobald du eintrittst. Oh nein. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Mahaprabha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Yashodananda So, 72. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayauti Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhakti Naishtiki. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 72. Garbhe Bhalyepya Paushkalyat
Garbhe Valyepya Paushkalyat
Ekadasha Vidantada
Ekadasha Vidantada
Lingam Nadrishate Yuna
Lingam Nadrishyate Yuna
Kuvam Chandra Masoyata
Kuvam Chandra Masoyata
Garbhe Bhalyepya Paushkalyat
Garbhe Valyepya Paushkalyat
Ekadasha Vidantada
Ekadasha Vidantada
Lingam Nadrishyate Yuna
Lingam Nadrishyate Yuna
Kuvam Chandra Masoyata
Kuvam Chandra Masoyata Valyepya Paushkalyat Garbhe Valyebhya Paushkaryat Ekadasha Vidham Tada Ekadasha Vidham Tada Lingam na drishyate yuna Lingam na drishyate yuna Kuvam chandramaso yata Kuvam chandramaso yata Garbhe Valyebhya Paushkaryat
Garbhe Valyebhya Paushkaryat
Ekadasha Vidham Tada
Ekadasha Vidham Tada
Lingam na drishyate yuna
Lingam na drishyate yuna
Kuvam chandramaso yatha
Kuvam chandramaso yatha. Vaishnavis.
Garbhe Valyebhya Paushkaryat
Garbhe Valyebhya Paushkaryat
Ekadasha Vidham Tada
Ekadasha Vidham Tada
Lingam na drishyate yuna
Lingam na drishyate yuna
Kuvam chandramaso yatha
Kuvam chandramaso yatha. Garbhe in the womb. Valye in boyhood. Api also. Apaushkaryat because of immaturity. Ekadasha the 10 senses and the mind. Vidam in the form of Tada at that time. Lingam the subtle body or false ego. Not. Drishyate is visible. Yunaha of a youth. Kuvam during the dark moon night. Chandramasa the moon. Yatha as. Translation purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When one is a youth, all the 10 senses and the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the boyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remain covered, just as the full moon is covered by the darkness of the dark moon night. That's a short purport. When a living entity is within the womb, his gross body, the 10 sense organs and the mind are not fully developed. At such a time, the objects of the senses do not disturb him. In a dream, a young man may experience the presence of a young woman, because at that time the senses are active. Because of an undeveloped senses, a child or a boy will not see a young woman in his dreams. Makes sense. The senses are active in youth even when one dreams. And although there may be no young woman present, the senses may act and there may be a seminal discharge, nuptial emission. The activities of the subtle and gross body depend on how developed conditions are. The example of the moon is very appropriate. On a dark moon night, the full shining moon is still present, but it appears not to be present due to conditions. Similarly, the senses of the living entity are there, but they only become active when the gross body and the subtle body are developed. Unless the senses of the gross body are developed, they will not act on the subtle body. Similarly, because of the absence of desire in the subtle body, there might be no development in the gross body. Okay. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gatamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Gyevacha Patitam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And the text: when one is a youth, all the 10 senses and the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the boyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remain covered, just as the full moon is covered by the darkness of the dark moon night. Hare Krishna. So, we are here in this section of the Bhagavatam, which, it's in a couple of days or even weeks. We are now talking about the transmigration of the soul, specifically about the role of the mind, and this interaction between subtle and gross body. It's quite a detailed description in this section of the Bhagavatam. But it's important to understand because this gives us an insight or an understanding on why we take birth again and again and again, and also how we can overcome. Why do we take birth again and again? Attachment. Desire. Right? Because we desire, we get a new body. Yeah, attachment, desires. Yes. So now to overcome, stop desire. We'll go to that point. But let's have first look at this specific shloka, and I will try to talk a little bit about desire in a general term. But now here we have a very interesting analogy. So the topic here is that we have senses, and then the senses are, somehow the senses in the subtle body, but then they are manifested in the gross body, right? And here is described that if the soul, the jiva, is in the womb of the mother, or even in boyhood, the sense organs are not fully developed. They are there, no doubt, on subtle and gross level they are there, but they're not fully developed. And therefore they are compared to like the full moon. The full moon, the moon is always there. The moon is always full. It's not that the moon planet itself kind of shrinks. It's just our vision that the moon looks different. And sometimes the dark moon night, the moon, seems to be almost disappearing. But that's just our vision, or it's kind of covered due to a condition. But so similarly, in boyhood also, the senses are there, and also, of course, the desire are there. I think tomorrow that will be the topic, right? That we say that children are very innocent. Children are still innocent. They are still innocent. Actually, this is completely nonsense because we understand from previous birth they bring so much with them, like all these material desires and all the bad qualities they bring with them. But in childhood, they are innocent. Why? Because it's covered. It's not yet manifested. But wait until they reach puberty, and then everything comes out. So this is stated here. And the example is given, and Prabhupada gives the example of a dream. That it's interesting. A young man, he may have many dreams of young, beautiful women, but a boy doesn't have. A kindergarten, 5-year-old boy also has dreams, but he will not dream about a young, beautiful woman. Why not? Because the senses are not developed. Also, his consciousness is not developed in the sense that he desires the opposite sex. But a young man who, during the day actively, desires, and his eyes see the beautiful form of a young woman, and naturally when he takes rest in the nighttime, then in the dream, these desires are manifest. And so much so, as Prabhupada describes here, the nocturnal emission, that one also may lose his semen. Of course, which brahmachari tries to avoid. I mean, in some way it's a natural function of the body. It's not the same as like sexual intercourse activity, because it's just like this superficial, some overflow which comes out, which isn't, it's not a, in that sense it's actually not much, one does not need to be so much worried about, because it's just a natural function of the body. But still, a brahmachari, what to speak of a sannyasi, will try to avoid this also, because it is still, it's a sign of some desires that are still there. Because the body would not produce semen if the desire is not there. The only reason that the body actually produces semen is because during, in the daytime or in the activity one has such desires. And of course now we are going here into the brahmachari class. That's topics usually discussed. Brahmachari ashram. But Bhagavatam speaks about it, what to do. But yeah, it is a fact that, and many of the men amongst us, we may have the experience. When we go to India, we spend a couple of months in India. Often, usually, we are quite, peaceful, not agitated, because the whole environment is just much more suitable for brahmacharya. But then you come to the West and then you preach, summertime, we have Ratha Yatra, like, and all these bikini girls get up and, yes, also give me some fruits. Every year I'm there on the chariot, distributing the fruits to everyone. And the bikini girls jump there. Now this is a test, so it's not so easy then to, be completely sober always. But that's the interaction between the subtle and the gross body. So that means if you're very pakha and you control your senses during your day, then also in the nighttime that will not necessarily has to happen. But the important point is the problem at the end says here. Similarly, the senses of the living entity are there, but they only become active when the gross body and the subtle body are developed. Unless the senses of the gross body are developed, they will not act on the subtle body. Similarly, because of this absence of desire in the subtle body, there might be no development in the gross body. So, in regard to this example of the nocturnal emission, this is what Prabhupada also confirms. If in a subtle body the desires are not there, then also it will not, the body will not react. But I think this statement we could also take in a more broader context, in a sense of if there is no material desires in a subtle body, then there is no need to accept further gross bodies, right? So the only reason why we accept new bodies, new gross bodies, is because in our subtle body, in our desires, we develop desires, and then according to these desires, the next body will be formed. And we know that in the present moment, we are forming, our subtle body is kind of changing, is forming according to our consciousness. And when we die and we accept a new body, then that new body will be according to our subtle body, our desires that we have formed. So that's why, as we, I think, heard many times during the last couple of weeks, the idea is to absorb our consciousness fully in Krishna and then spiritualize our consciousness so that we have spiritual desires, and then we get a spiritual body. Right? And this is also the glory and the power of Bhakti Yoga, because liberation is basically a side effect. And I think Krishna Prabhu yesterday quoted this shloka from the third canto. Let me see if we have it here. Yes, this is Bhagavatam 3.25.33. This is Kapila Shiksha, where it says, Jara Yatya Shuyu Kosham Nikir Nam Analo Yata. Bhakti devotional service dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. So whatever you put into your body, then if you have a strong fire, Agni, then everything will be digested. And then naturally it will be digested without a separate endeavor from yourself. So similarly, by practicing Krishna consciousness, by Bhakti Yoga, the subtle body without separate effort will be dissolved in due course of time. And that's the goal. Like if the subtle body is dissolved, then the soul is free. It doesn't have to take birth again. And Sri Vishnu Thakur comments to this shloka. Bhakti alone is the result sought in these types of bhakti, since they have no material desire. Liberation is the unsought result. That bhakti destroys the subtle body, kosha. However, this distinction of this liberation from liberation caused by jnana is shown with an example. It is like the fire of digestion, devouring edibles, items like food. Having no alternative for nourishing the body, the fire of digestion destroys only the useless portion of the eaten food, but nourishes the life airs, senses and dhatus by the good portion of the food. By this the body gains strength of muscle, senses and mind. Similarly, bhakti destroys only the bad portion, the material aspects of sound and other sense objects, the material sense that devatas. It does not destroy the good portion of sound or other sense objects and natural senses which are related to the Lord. By these sense objects and senses, the spiritual body of the devotee appears. Therefore, when the scriptures talk about destruction of the body and senses, they refer to the material aspect of the subtle body. So the subtle body is destroyed, but the spiritual body is kind of, not manifest, kind of manifested or awakened. And
sorry, what's the quote?
This is 3:25:33. Yeah, Kapila Shiksha. So that's the power of bhakti, that it's very naturally establishing ourselves in our original constitutional position as a servant of Krishna, and liberation will just naturally follow as described here. So when we go back to that question of desire, we know that the subtle body is the cause, the mind actually, the desires that we cultivate is the cause for, getting more and more new material bodies, gross bodies. So then what's the solution? Well, we have to give up all material desires. Would you agree? Just giving up all material desires is the solution.
No. First, get attached to Krishna.
First, get attached to Krishna. You know everything. Such an Russian usually say. You know everything. Well, I just ask a simple question, and then you know everything. Yes. Let me see. Yeah, we have in the end of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita the characteristic of a pure devotee, or someone who is established in transcendental position, is described. And there we find these two shlokas which are very relevant in this regard. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti nakama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So peace can be attained not by satisfying all possible desires that we have, but actually by just tolerating the desires. And the example is given like the ocean. There's so many rivers that flow into the ocean, but the ocean remains equiposed, is not disturbed by it. So similarly, a Krishna conscious person, although the senses, there's so many desires coming in, but he remains undisturbed by it. And then Krishna continues saying that a person who has given up all desire for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Those who are desireless can be shunt in perfect peace. But then Prabhupada explains in the purport, to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. Because Prabhupada says that in other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actual desirelessness. So the desire to become Krishna conscious is this platform of desirelessness. And Prabhupada explains because to become free from desires is impossible for a living entity. Prabhupada would say, we are not a stone. A stone is desireless. Okay? Like just a piece of matter, or like this wooden, how you call this? Table. Is a kind of table. This is desireless. No? I don't know, maybe it desires to serve the speaker by holding the book. But that would be more a spiritual vision in the spiritual world. But in the material world, this table doesn't have a desire. But a living entity always has desires. It's a symptom of the living entity. Therefore, there will always be desires. So, just to become desireless, as some jnanis or Buddhists or monists claim that's the solution to become free from any desire, it's not possible. We always will have desire. But we can develop that consciousness of I want to just please Krishna, I want to satisfy Krishna. And by pleasing Krishna, I'm actually satisfied. And that's the beautiful platform of Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur very nicely expresses this in one of his songs. And if he, I don't know, whenever I hear this, I think like, wow, my God, that's like high level. But that's a good meditation. That's what a Vaishnava feels like when it comes to desire. This is from Gita Valli. Prabhutava pada yuge morani vedana naima ideya sukha vidyadana jana naima ki swarga ara moksha naima ki naki kari partana koma vibhuti laki. O Lord, I make this appeal at your lotus feet. I do not want bodily pleasure, mundane education, wealth, or any numbers of followers. I don't want bodily pleasure, mundane education, wealth, or followers. And if you think about it, I mean, that's, in this one sentence, it's like mind-blowing actually. That's exactly what everyone else wants. The whole material world runs by these desires. Bodily pleasure. Everyone wants bodily pleasure. The whole materialistic and also scientific achievements are simply made to increase bodily pleasure. Why do you have, road trip and how you call it? Or elevators, you don't have to go escalators just to increase your bodily pleasure or comforts. Everything is meant for bodily comfort, just to comfort the body. That's something, a big difference between the West and the East, like in India. People are not so much I mean, nowadays, of course, more and more. But I have told this story several times. But once I was in one Swiss lady, she's married to an Indian, and I visited them at their home. And it was winter time. And if you have been in Vrindavan during winter time, it's freezing cold. I mean, it's, I don't know, maybe 5 degrees. It's like the temperature of a fridge. And people don't have heating systems at home. And then it's just this marble or stone floor. And then I saw like myself and also the Swiss lady, we were covered into, like clothes. And then the Indian husband was walking bare feet. And my God, you don't want to put socks? Oh no, I don't like socks. But you don't, it's not cold, it's cold, yeah. But it's only 2 months. Only 2 months. And it just gave me the, okay, different understanding. In the West, it's all about comfort, adjusting everything, immediately. If something is not so comfortable, immediately adjusting. If it's too cold, putting on heater. If it's too hot, putting on fan, AC. It's like always adjusting so that we feel comfortable. There's no idea of tapasya or just tolerating some difficulties. But in India, it's much more there. People understand. Yeah, now it's cold. It's like, yeah, now it's winter, then it's summer, it will go. It's a very different mentality. But we are very much into bodily pleasure, bodily comfort. Mundane education, everyone wants to get the degree, everyone wants to, have some position, some power, wealth, of course, because through the wealth you can get all the bodily pleasures. And of course, in addition, you want to have followers, you want to be famous, you want to be known. And especially in the time of social media and Instagram and TikTok and how they are called. Everyone wants to have, followers and like. And it's actually it very much nourishes the false ego and the whole idea of pratishta. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I don't want all of this. No desire. O Lord, I neither want heavenly pleasure nor liberation for material existence. I do not pray to you for achieving any kind of mystic perfections. So the first shloka described like the very gross desires everyone has. I mean, you ask any person, they want to have material enjoyment. But this is like more elevated. In the West, people even don't know about these things. They don't know about heaven, they don't know about liberation or mystic yoga. But even this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has no interest in. So then, what does he want? Nicha karma kuna doshe ye chanma pai chanma chanme yena tava nama guna kati ematra asamama tomara charane ahituki bhaktiridhe jage anukshane. In whatever species of life I am born, according to the result of my good and bad karma, may I always chant your holy name and glorify your transcendental qualities. That's what I want. Nice, no? Haribol, Haribol, Hare Krishna. That's all what I want, I just want to chant Hare Krishna. Wherever, like whether according to my good, bad karma I may take birth here or there, I don't mind. As long as I can still chant your holy name, then I will be fine. Glorify your holy name and glorify your transcendental qualities. Nama, Guna. Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Katha. They always go together. Jai Jagannath Baladev. And then he says, my only desire that I submit. So now here's a desire, okay. My only desire that I submit at your lotus feet is that your causeless devotional service may constantly remain manifested within my heart. Your devotional service may always remain manifested in my heart. That's what I want. Not that like one day I'm super enthusiastic and then the next day I have no interest at all in Krishna consciousness. No, but let me have that devotional service, that mood of let me serve you, let me, like as I always quote Adipurush, Prabhupada disciple. How wonderful is Krishna, let us serve him. How wonderful is Krishna, let us serve him. Like the Prabhupada disciple in New York, he always makes this point. That's wanted, like always remembering, hey, Krishna is so amazing, let me serve Krishna. That kind of conviction, that desire, let it always be in my heart. Without, not like an elephant's bath, in a sense of just taking a bath and then again putting dust, but let me always be constantly fixed in your service. And then he says, Vishaye priti ebe achaya amara se matra priti hoiku karane tanure. May I develop the same kind of attachment for your lotus feet that at present I have for material enjoyment. That's an interesting prayer. Now, that amount of attachment I have now for sense enjoyment, let me have the same intensity, desire for your lotus feet. How strong will it be, your attachment to Krishna? It would be very strong, isn't it? Imagine, like if you're very honest and you look into your heart, now how strong that the urge, the desire is, that fascination, that longing, it's actually very strong. So if that intensity would be there for Krishna, it would be nice, no? It would be very nice. And there's the other prayer of Rupa Goswami, where he says, just like young man and young woman, they feel attracted to each other, please let me be attracted to you. It's the same spirit. Let that attachment remain perpetually, and by the influence of your holy name, let it increase further, day by day. That's another desire. And it's interesting, by the influence of your holy name, let that attachment increase day by day. And that's a nice meditation. When we chant, and of course I preach to myself, when we chant the holy name, then meditation should be, let me increase my relationship, the intensity of my relationship with Krishna. Today I have another chance to cultivate my relationship. And hopefully by day, my devotion to Krishna is increasing, especially through the chanting of the holy name, because that's the Yuga Dharma. And then he says in conclusion, Pashu Pakshi Hoya Taki Sarva Kiva Nirya Tava Bhakti Rahu Bhakti Noda Hridhaye. It does not matter whether I take birth as an animal or a bird, or whether I live in heaven or in hell. May Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's only prayer to you is that your devotional service may always remain within my heart. And that's, I mean, if you can pray something like this sincerely, then you're quite advanced. Like, doesn't matter heaven or hell. Would you matter, heaven or hell? I would. I want to go to heaven. I mean, if you hear the description in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam of the hellish planets, you don't want to be there. Well, you really don't want to be there. So, but Bhaktivinoda said, I don't mind. Heaven, hell. As long I can always remember you, as well this devotional service always remains in my heart. If that is there, then I will be fine. So that's the desirelessness that Srila Prabhupada is talking about. To become desireless means oops, just lost it. To become desireless means to not desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. That if we are fixed in that desire, and whenever I talk about this topic, I usually quote another shloka, and then this will also end. What's the end time? speaking of this is actually befitting because this is spoken by Sanat Kumara, by the 4 Kumaras, and in today's shloka we heard about how in boyhood, because the senses are not activated yet, then also the subtle body is not agitated, nothing happened. And what did the Kumaras do? They just remained small boys of the age of 5. And they are known as the very Paka Brahmacharis, right? And it's a very nice idea. You just remain 5 years old, and you remain innocent in a sense that, you know, the senses are not developed yet, so nothing can happen. Then you can peacefully remain Brahmachari. Of course, the 4 Kumaras anyway are pure devotees, but just to, you know, it's just kind of an external manifestation of the consciousness. They kind of have this body of small boys. But yeah, that's like fitting to our shloka today. And they say, Sanat Kumar says, Yad pada pankaja falasa vilasa bhaktya karamasa yagrahitam utkratayanti shanta tadavana narikta matayo yatayo piruta shrota ganasamaranam bhajavasudevam. This is to King Parishit Maharaj. And Bhakti is glorified. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, of the Lord, can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So there are waves coming in. What kind of waves? The waves of sense gratification. And these waves are caused by the hard-knotted desire to enjoy in this world. And what do the jnanis and the yogis do? They cannot stop these waves. They're overflowed by the waves of sense gratification. But for the devotees, who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet, engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet, for them it's very easy to overcome. And how is that? The waves of a river flow incessantly, and it's very difficult to stop them. Similarly, the waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong that they cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti yoga. And then Prabhupada gives this analogy. It may be argued that the waves of a river are incessantly flowing and that they cannot be stopped. But the waves of the river flow towards the sea. When the tide comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river, and the river itself becomes overflooded. And the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river. You got that picture? Sometimes the ocean pushes back the river, overflows the river. Similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of Lord Krishna, for the Lord in Krishna consciousness, that stagnate material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. And that's Prabhupada's advice. With intelligence, make many plans how to serve Krishna, and in this way you push back the material desires. The material desires will always be there, but if you have more desires to serve Krishna, then the material desires will be subdued, because you're more engaged in making plans for serving Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this was today's topic. Let's see. When one is a youth, all the 10 senses and the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the bodyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remain covered, just as the full moon is covered by the darkness of the dark moon night. So the senses are not developed, that that's why they don't desire to manifest. And we spoke about the fact that if there is an absence of desire in the subtle body, then there is no need for further gross bodies, but to be desireless is not possible, so we have to desire to become Krishna consciousness, and that's the proper way to overcome. And we heard Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, which gives an amazing example of what it means to be fully absorbed in Krishna and only desiring devotional service. Okay, any comments or questions?
So you were quoting this from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that just as much as desires I have for the material, that means I have that for the spiritual, for Krishna. Also, Bilvamanga Thakur comes to mind where he goes to the prostitute and she says, well, if you had that attachment for Krishna that you have for me, then you'll be okay. And then isn't it also, because just a little topic on my mind at the time, but isn't it because it is the same energy, just perverted?
Yes.
Because sometimes I feel like it's just where we look, and we can look either that way or that way, and it depends on. So it's not only a metaphor, isn't it actually?
Reality.
It's actually reality, no?
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada in the purport to 336, Prabhupada explains there that when the original love of Krishna that we all have this love for Krishna, when we come in touch with matter, just as yogurt is, just as milk is turned into yogurt by tamarind, similarly, that original love is turned into lust by coming in contact with Rajaguna or the material energy. And then we wrongly identify with the body, and we still, this pleasure-seeking soul is incarnate in the body, and then we seek for pleasure, and the only thing we know is the body, so we think I have to seek pleasure through the body. And then that's how lust is manifested. And there's so much desire, I want to have pleasure, or how to get pleasure, I'm this body, so let's get pleasure through the body. But if I understand, no, I'm a soul, and yes, I have to have pleasure, that's my nature, but that's by the relationship with Krishna, not connected to this body, then again, it goes in the right direction. But yeah, I would say you're completely right, that it's actually the same energy, it's just misdirected, it's perverted. And that's why Bhakti Yoga is so powerful, because it just redirects us into the right direction and establishes us in the proper identity as servant of Krishna. And understanding that, yeah, we want to have pleasure, but pleasure comes from pleasing Krishna, because he is the original enjoyer, and we are just, getting that pleasure by his enjoyment, not by independently, separately trying to get pleasure, because that kind of pleasure is dukkha yonaya yevati, it's actually the source of all miseries. Nice point, thank you.
Because it's actually really inspiring then it's not a punishment that if you turn to the material you forget the spiritual, it's just a mathematical fact.
Yeah.
You cannot enjoy material anymore, otherwise you'll be punished. No, it's if you look that way, you can't look that way at the same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's like in Purana there's this statement. Someone who walks into the walks to the west and wants to catch an object in the east doesn't work, so if you go in this direction, you can't go in the other direction. Yeah. Alright, thank you very much. Grantara Srila Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada Hari Hari.
Krishna Premarupa ki jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Ram Chakalpatra, Nubhe Chakalpati.
No desire means desiring Krishna. And also I heard that hearing the Maha mantra as material silence. I like it.
Material silence.
Yeah, true silence.
Yeah. But don't show. That statement is nice. What you said? Hearing the Maha mantra is
It's material silence.
material silence. Anyway,
It's like a sutra.
I mean, there's an interreligious dialogue with the topic of silence. And
It's the same point.
Yeah.
True silence doesn't mean silence, but it means.
It's like with Swami's understanding of Mauna.
I only speak about Krishna.
Vaishnava Mauna means Krishna Kata.
Yeah.
You may speak for hours, you know. And that's considered to be Mauna. Nice class, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hast du irgendwie ein Sünd geplant oder so? Ich habe auch eine Klasse nicht gehört.
Genau, sonst habe ich nichts geplant. Möchtest du sehen? Möchtest du das machen?
Ich habe gehört, das ist immer eine ganz gute Idee. Was ist das neue Gebiet? wechseln? Ich weiß nicht, irgend so ein Buch. Hätte ich Krishna Premarupa fragen können.
Ja, ich glaube, der weiß da schon Bescheid über das Thema.
Hätte ja sein können, dass du sagst, hey cool, gerade habe ich mir gedacht, das.
Bist du technisch versiert? Mit Technik?
So Computer oder so.
Soundsystem zum Beispiel.
Halbwegs, aber ich kenne das hier halt nicht.
Das Ding ist, ich habe mir das gerade durch die Klasse gedacht, dass irgendjemand müsste das mal machen, aber ich weiß nicht wer. Das macht immer so ein Geräusch. Hast du das gehört? Und heute war es noch relativ gut, manchmal ist das so richtig laut. Da erschrickst du total. Und ich weiß nicht, woran es liegt. Vielleicht, wenn du irgendwie Möglichkeiten hast, über die Tage mal. Vielleicht muss man recherchieren auf Google oder irgendjemand fragen, der sich wirklich auskennt. Und dann vielleicht sind es die Übergänge, die Staub drin haben. Keine Ahnung.
Mir ist auch die Verbindung kurz gehabt oder so.
Die Verbindung war unterbrochen.
Nee, aber ich frage mich, wo es herkommt.
Ja.
Was das sein könnte.
Ich weiß nicht, ich denke einfach mal laut, weil das ist jetzt so ein Thema, wo ich merke es immer wieder, wenn jemand Klasse gibt. Und ich würde jetzt halt einfach aufs Internet gehen und mal auf Google fragen. Also hier gehen die, wir haben jetzt gerade eins verbunden und das geht dann ins Sound an. Da drüben.
Das wäre schon auch mal wieder schön, das ist lange her. Geht ihr raus, oder?
In Chakra, wo geht raus? Eigentlich fast jeden Tag, dieser Brahmacharya in Safran.
Der Mangalarati gesungen hat.
Genau.
Ja.
Und sonst?
Ja, er hat diese Mut, das passt. Bücher verteilen, das ist schön.
Ja, das ist auch schön.
in Deutschland aufgewachsen und ich bin in Europa.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna.
Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.